Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Owning Authenticity. My name is Carly, and in this video we are specifically taking a look at an aspect that is happening in astrology from February 11th through the 25th of 2024. And we are looking at this because this only happens once every about 16 years, I'd say 16, 17 years. So to have the North Node come into a conjunction with Chiron, that only happens once every 16 years, and it lasts for 2 weeks this time, and it'd be different every time for reasons that basically the North Node kind of bounces back and forth, and so it spends longer on some degrees than it does on others. But they are coming together, the North Node and Chiron are coming together at 16 degrees of Aries during February 11th through the 25th. And I've titled this video and kind of like highlighted the vibe of this transit as Heart of a Hero. And that comes from an episode on Cathy Heller's channel called Abundance Cruise Control. And that is part of a series that she did called Wealthy Woman Within. And I highly recommend, I've been listening to this lately. And Heart of a Hero is actually her song that she wrote, and she shares it on that episode, Abundance Cruise Control. So I did link that in the description if you'd like to check it out. The song had me freaking bawling. So Heart of a Hero, like, we had to go here, and it gave me such resonance with this North Node Chiron conjunction and what is ultimately happening for myself during this time of evolution, and what I think is likely happening for a lot of the souls who are orbiting around this work of owning authenticity. You know, I have theories about who watches my channel. The truth is, mostly I know about myself, right? Like, I can't know who's on the other end of the screen other than my beliefs around the world being a mirror for me and for my own evolution. And this has been really solidified for me lately as I have been doing the free activation sessions, a few each month. The link for that forum is also in the description box, where I choose a couple each month to meet with for free, and you can apply to be in the pile to be chosen from by submitting an application at that link. I just reached out to somebody new yesterday because these applications are such a beautiful way for me to see and meet, like, who are the souls on the other end of the channel, you know? And I had one of these sessions on Tuesday where I gave a free activation session to this person who filled out one of the applications, and it was incredible how synced up our journeys were, like how parallel they were. Like, I don't necessarily see myself as a coach. I see myself as somebody who is particularly talented when it comes to growth and it comes to untangling what's in the way of whatever it is that we want. And it's interesting how many times these sessions end up being a mirror reflection of, like, that very morning I realize I want this. I'm just like on fire with like wanting this thing in my life. And I show up to that session and I'm like, so what's most alive for you? And she's like, this exact same thing that I was just thinking about. So we proceeded to like be a mirror for each other, and the activation session, quote unquote, like, it is not something that I give to the other person. It is very much something that we co-create together. And I think, you know, this whole vibe, it has a lot to do with this North Node Chiron conjunction. The North Node being the destiny point, our future, kind of a North Star of pointing towards the collective evolution of this time. The North Node transits each sign for about 18 months. And so it takes 18 and a half years for the North Node to go all the way around the zodiac. And that's why it takes about 16, 17 years for the North Node to come into alignment with Chiron like this. So only every decade and a half half or so, we're having this alignment of the destiny point crossing exactly in the same place in the sky as Chiron. And who is Chiron? I have a video that I'll put up here where it's more of like a more in-depth look at the Chiron archetype. Chiron is not quite an asteroid and not quite a comet. It's a hybrid being, and in that way, it's also represented. Chiron in mythology is this centaur who I believe his mom was like a nymph, like a fairy, and she changed forms into a stallion and to get away from this god, to like run away from this god. I forget who Chiron's dad was. There are lots of great Chiron mythology videos. I'll see if I can link one of those in the description too. People, oh yeah, I know which one I'm going to link. She's awesome. Highly recommend. But anyways, Chiron's mom was trying to get away from this god, and he actually ended up catching her in his stallion form and forced himself on her, and she became pregnant because of that interaction, and she gave birth to Chiron. She gave birth to this half man, half horse creature that the god dad already didn't want anything to do with her other than what already happened. And so his dad wasn't in the picture, and the mom, as soon as she saw him, she said he's a monster, and she rejected him. And so Chiron was an orphan, and to be rejected at birth by your mother, that was his wound. That they say Chiron is the wounded healer. It's the wound that we each carry that it never really heals. It's one of those, like, this first wound of him being rejected at birth is one of the wounds that he had that like never really healed. He was adopted and taught the healing methodologies by this other god, this I think it was Apollo, the sun god, that adopted him. But again, I am not an expert. I don't deep dive and study the mythology behind it so much as the energy of it personally. But Chiron's story is so much baked into the energy of what Chiron represents for us as individual souls and as a collective humanity. It is that part, that pain point that no matter what we do, it just seems to always stick with us. And the gist of the Chiron archetype is that basically we are each and every single one of us a wounded healer in some way. That like humans are naturally very resilient, and even if you know that's hard to go there, I urge you to think about that in relationship with the Chiron archetype, because that's kind of the whole point, is that when we have this wound that is aching and festering and hurting us actively on the regular basis, we tend to not put up with that forever. Like that's kind of the role of our ego, is that to say, like, to get sick of things and be like, you know what, I deserve better than this. And so when we get to that point of fed upness, then we go seeking medicine. We seek out solutions to heal this wound. And typically when it comes to our Chiron wound, we become the creators, the alchemists of medicine that soothes the wound that we carry. So depending on what sign your Chiron is in, that gives you a sign and house, that gives you a sense of the flavor of your unique unhealable wound. These wounds, though, they are treatable. We can find ways to create medicine to give ourselves some relief from whatever the pain of it is. And that can be, a word that comes to mind for Chiron and a medicine that soothes most Chiron wounds is permission. Like the Buddhists say, suffering isn't pain, suffering isn't resistance to pain, or suffering is in attaching to things that are by nature impermanent. Things are always changing, and yet we try to make them stable and certain. And that is truly where the suffering comes from. And so the idea, the gist of that then is that you can alleviate a lot of suffering by simply allowing whatever it is to be. for example, my wound is Chiron in Gemini. Chiron in Gemini in the third house conjunct my sun. So I have my sun at 28 degrees of Gemini and my Chiron is at 29 degrees of Gemini. And so Chiron and the wounded healer plays a pretty significant role in my life, and that is why I believe I tend to attract a lot of other people who carry this archetype of the wounded healer really close to their heart, where they personally have suffered a lot, and because they have found little ways, they have found little tinctures and medicines to help yourself feel better and to alleviate your own suffering, that you become very passionate about sharing those solutions with other people. And that is truly how I see myself, as far as like that Chiron and Gemini in the third house, and feeling like, I think this is kind of true for Chiron in any of the air signs, so Chiron in Libra, Chiron in Aquarius, and Chiron in Gemini, is that you tend to have a really hard time in social groups and being, especially in Gemini, being understood by other people. There's like this freaking wall that's like in between your communication with other people, where no matter what you say or how many words you say, there's just this inability to be understood by others. And it is so interesting because Chiron and Gemini, that's how I would say that was kind of my first interpretation of it, is like the most noticeable pain is this gap in understanding where you just cannot communicate and get on the same page with another person. Or if you do, it's more rare. And that's what I have found in my like deepening into the medicine of my own personal Chiron wound, is that really communication is happening on an energetic level, and the wound of Chiron and Gemini is to give yourself permission that people don't hear your words, they hear your energy. And the fact of whether or not you can get on the same page with someone is really a matter of like the other person being able and willing. Able and willing, those are two very different things, but you need both of them. They have to be able and willing to run the same energy that you are running. They have to be willing to meet whatever frequency you're offering and to be in that vicinity and to receive the energy of what it is that you're offering. And then there is reciprocation that's able to take place. I think Chiron and Gemini, for me, it's like you have to give yourself permission to stop fussing over the words that you're choosing anyway, because the words are not the point. I get the message from my spiritual support a lot that's like, it doesn't even matter what you say. You know, like when I'm feeling like cloudy in my brain, like I can't find my words, they'll come through and they'll be like, remember how it doesn't even matter what you say? Remember how the people who can hear you, they're hearing your energy, and the people who can't hear you, they can't hear you because there's an energetic block within them. And give yourself permission that like it's actually not even your role to work in their energy field. Right? Like it's our role to work inside of our own energy field, to heal our own blocks, to open up our own range of frequencies. And from that range of frequencies that we're able to access ourselves, and then the law of resonance, we will find ourselves sitting across from people who can hear us. And basically what this means is that like another permission that I give myself for Chiron and Gemini is like, give yourself permission to let the whole point be understanding yourself. Let the whole point be belonging to yourself, to be reciprocated and heard by yourself. Can you hear you? Because if you can hear you, then truly it doesn't matter which one of the other people can and can't hear you. And that is truly where I feel like there is some overlap here for Chiron in Aries and North Node in Aries, is like this idea of not everybody's gonna get it. You know, when you step into your authentic self, when you offer to the world what is real and authentic for you, truly at that point, it's like there are going to be some people who freaking love the hell out of it. They're like obsessed with what it is that you're doing. And there are going to be people who don't get it, who do not understand what you're doing and think you should be different. And, all of these things that go along with they are where they are in their frequencies energetically, and you are where you are. And there is a mismatch happening. When you are more committed to your authenticity, when you are more committed to understanding yourself and finding and hearing the beat of your drum, regardless of who else is able to hear it with you, there is, at that point, there has to be a tolerance for rejection to occur. There has to be a tolerance for allowing the ones who don't get it to go on their merry way. Like at that point, I feel like on the Libra South Node side, there's this cycle of offer your authenticity. The other person is like, nope, not that. I want this from you. And you're like, oh, okay. And then we get back in alignment with like what would harmonize with the other person. And that's that Libra South Node cycle of, I think what we would experience with Chiron conjunct the North Node at that same time is Chiron opposite the South Node. So like opposing forces, and what that is likely to look like, I think, is the repercussions of following the beat of what somebody else wants from you, of living your life on somebody else's terms, of presenting your authenticity and they push back, and so you get back in alignment with them. And at that point, I talked about this in the deep dive of that Libra South Node, is like in this Saturnian 3D Earth school, we are each the owner of our own karma. We are each the one that we make our choices. We exert our free will. We throw the ball that we, the metaphorical ball in the metaphorical direction that we choose, and it hits the bound of the reality, the 3D karmic reality, and it bounces back at us. Like, another word for that is we are each the owner of our consequences. And so Chiron in Aries opposite the South Node in Libra, it's likely to show us anywhere where we're now being punished for things that's not even authentic to me. Like, I didn't even want to do that. So-and-so said I should do that. And it's like, well, karma doesn't give a fuck who said you should do it. Karma is giving you back the consequences of your choices. Period. And so whoever influenced you into making that choice, they are not responsible for your consequences. Like, I was watching Seinfeld the other day, the Kenny Rogers Roaster episode. I forget if it's like season 8, season 9, somewhere up in there. And the giant red sun in the shape of a chicken, where it's like totally redded out on Kramer's apartment. And so Kramer and Jerry, they switch apartments until a little while, because Jerry ran into an old college friend and he's like, come on, come have lunch with me. I haven't seen you in, what's it been, 5 years? And the guy's like, actually, I have a meeting I'm supposed to get to. And Jerry's like, yeah, blow it off. Remember poli-sci? How many of those did we go to? And the guy's like, oh, okay, all right, let's go catch up. And they're sitting at lunch then, and he's like, Jerry's asking him, like, how's your career going or whatever? And he's like, yeah, I work for this big investment firm. We actually just landed the Citibank account. Our first big meeting with them was supposed to be today. And Jerry's like, the meeting you blew off? He's like, yeah, wasn't that kind of important? Yeah, it was. And so then the guy got fired, obviously, because he blew off the big meeting with the gigantic client. And now he's unemployed. Like, Jerry put the social pressure on. Like, Jerry gave him a hard time about, come on, blow it off. Like, being the leader of this guy. And this guy, he chose to follow him, like, and at that point, the employer doesn't care that Jerry said I should, like, that doesn't hold a single ounce of water. Okay. You made the choice, dude. And now he's the one that's fired, and he's the one that's now the assistant manager at the Kenny Rogers Roasters. So that was an example that I happened to see last night, where I think that's the gist of this Chiron opposite South Node in Libra, is that we will personally be charged with consequences that are the result of our choices, but that our hand was guided by external forces, external people around us having opinions, and we followed their opinions instead of what was authentic to us, and then it causes a rough ride for us. So I think that's like one end of the manifestation, is that, you know, we will be reminded of how critically important it is to be authentic, because at that point, you know, like they say, like, I'd rather be hated for being me than being loved by millions of people who really don't even know who I am. You know, like, I'd rather create for the self and have no public than create for the public and have no self. Like, this kind of hollowed out feeling of paying consequences that, like, aren't even what I wanted. Like, I knew better and I didn't trust myself. I trusted somebody else and it bit me in the ass. So that's one. I think a different one, though, is that, you know, with this Aries North Node in general, even though it is pointing towards like a increased level of individuality and authenticity, and each individual finding the primal spark of who they were born to be, stepping into being the leader of their own lives, I think it is increasingly likely, especially with Chiron coming together with the North Node, that we will begin having more and more and more people pop up in our lives where we are able to create these equal, reciprocal, interdependent exchanges with other people, where we are personally being our authentic self and other people around us are finding value in that. You know, like, again, this is from the deep dive, but we got into, you know, when you meet people, it's very likely one of the higher frequency manifestations of this Aries North Node experience for the collective is that you'll meet people who are like, more fire, please. You know, like, they want more of your authentic self. They want you to burn even brighter. They want you to burn even hotter. They want you to be even more direct, even more the tip of the spear and pointy and harsh and bold. They want more of that. They encourage you to be even more of that. And that, I think, is part of the medicine of Chiron and Aries, is that people with this particular wound, you know, anybody with Chiron and Aries is going through their Chiron return as part of this Chiron in Aries transit that's about 8 years long. I want to say Chiron spends 8 years in Aries. So there's a really solid chunk of the population here on Earth that has Chiron and Aries in their chart, just because of Chiron's elliptical orbit, meaning it spends the most time in Pisces and Aries, and it spends the least amount of time in Virgo and Libra. So while it spends 8 years in Aries, I'm pretty sure it only spends a year and a half in Libra. So Chiron in Aries is a really solid chunk of the collective frequency. And these souls as a group, they are beautiful at encouraging people to be more of who they really are. This group of souls, Chiron and Aries souls, they are good at sparking the fire of authenticity in other people. And emphasis on the in other people part. They tend to be better at, you know, unlocking and fueling the authenticity of others than they even are of doing that for themselves. And truly, the better and better and better they get at doing it for themselves, it's like their ability to do it for other people will always be out ahead of their ability to do it for themselves. And there really isn't a way to get better at doing it for other people other than to move your own ability forward. So the greater their own level of self-empowerment, the greater transfusions of empowerment that they are able to give to other people. And I think, you know, that's maybe another way to look at this heart of the hero. Like, when we empower ourselves, when we will personally rise the tide underneath our own ship, we have more to give. We have more to give to others. And typically Chiron and Aries people tend to value other people more than they value themselves. And so coming at it from this angle, I would say the same for North Node in Aries actually, is that South Node in Libra, it tends to think more highly of other people than it does of itself. So to have these two forces coming together in Aries, North Node and Chiron, where both of them are more concerned with others, it's like, it makes total sense to me why my channeled message is coming at it from this angle of like, really truly it benefits everyone around you, like in huge ways, when you will empower yourself. You know, like, you don't have to think that it's all about you. You don't have to, it's not selfish. Like, truly, at this point, when we look at it like this, it's actually the least selfish thing you could do is to empower yourself so that you have that, so that then all the people around you, you're able to empower them even more, right? So this moment of Chiron and North Node coming together for these 2 weeks, February 11th through February 25th, for the first time in 16 or 17 years, this is a time of unlocking. Chiron is the key, the key to our own pain, so to speak, unlocking our own wounding. This is a time of finding a key to our own self-empowerment that allows us to show up in our communities in a different way. You know, all of this is not happening in a bubble. We also have Pluto in Aquarius at this same time. We're just getting started in the 0 degree of Aquarius, where, you know, that's not like an exact aspect by any means, since this North Node Chiron conjunction is happening at 16 degrees. But by sign, Aries and Aquarius, it is again fueling the rise of the empowerment of the individual, because when you think about Aquarius, like, it's very communal. And so what if only one person was empowered and only one person was giving to the community, and the community is, you know, let's even think about our global community. The community is 8 billion people. What if only one person was empowered and giving to that community? Would the community have enough? Would the community have what it needs to survive and thrive? No. One person being in their power and one person making a contribution, that's not even close to enough. You know how much is enough? 100% of the people being empowered and making their contribution. You know, this is where it gets really tricky between, you know, like, do we have to earn our right to survive? And I think the answer is no, that truly the whole point of the community is that, you know, likely 100% of the population of the community is not going to be physically capable of making, let's just say, a quote unquote meaningful contribution. And let's just first picture babies, okay? Like, newborn infants. Like, what's their contribution? Not a whole lot. They're mostly in taking and receiving mode at that point. And the other group might be the elderly or the physically disabled. You know, there's a periphery of the community that is not physically capable of making a contribution. And then there's everybody else. There's everybody else who is physically capable of making a contribution. And we are truly all in this together. And so the well-being of the community, the well-being of the tribe, is dependent on as many able-bodied people as are willing to make a contribution to the tribe, them doing so, and that hopefully we have more people contributing than taking. You know, like, that's how the tribe survives. That's how humanity as a collective. I was reading something this morning that talked about, like, let's try giving everyone what they need, as in, like, if everyone in the world had what they needed, then world peace would be a lot more likely. And we're not talking about what everybody wants. We're simply talking about, like, meeting a bare minimum base level need in every single person on the planet. Because revolutions, like, is very Aquarian and Uranian. Like, a revolutionary rising up, a tidal wave that topples over existing power structures, that happens when there's a huge group of the population, a huge section of the community that doesn't have what they need. And what that is like a breakdown in the flow of the giving and the taking within the community. And I think there's a lot of people on this planet, and I know I'm one of them, that has a lot to heal around, you know, our taking and our over focus on what am I getting? Do I have enough? What, you know, how many resources do I have? Like, and then we get into this comparison mode with other people of like, how much do I have compared to how much do they have? And is that fair? Instead of thinking about, do I have what I need? You know, like, are my human needs met? That being the focus of kind of a balanced community where if my needs are met and I have extra, I have energy that I'm going to give. I'm going to give my time. I'm going to give my money. I'm going to give my attention. I'm going to give my listening. I'm going to give my empathy. Like, I have extra, and so I'm going to contribute it to the community. At that point, it's truly imperative that we think about empowering as many of the individuals as possible to feel like their needs are met. Because truly, it's not about trying to get blood from the stone. It's not about like, you know, bottom line, you need to give more. It's like people give when they feel like they have extra. People feel when they have enough, then generosity will naturally kick in. It's natural to be generous with what you have, giving of what you have when you have enough. And when you feel like you don't have enough, when you feel like your needs aren't being met, then it's very natural to absorb and take. And so the first question with this is, where are you personally? You know, within your energy, do you tend to err, or do you tend to, you know, lean towards the side of I have enough and my cup overflows and I'm just regularly looking for where can I give this extra energy that's overflowing in my experience? Or are you more on the side of like, I don't have enough? And I'll be really honest with you that I feel like I am probably more often on the side of I don't have enough. And there is some blocks to receiving that I have personally been working through, that I'm working on a video that's about Pluto in Aquarius and the blocks that are being transformed by Pluto working its way for 20 years through Aquarius. But one of them is this block to receiving, this block to believing in the inherent value of ourselves. You know, like, it's one thing to be physically incapable of making a contribution. Like, I totally get that. And I'm actually of the belief that that's why it's so important for the able-bodied ones to make their contribution, because the job of the community is to care for all of its members. All of its members, because actually, no, you don't have to earn the right to survive. Okay, like, you don't. And if you need to be taken care of, that is the role of the tribe. And that, in my opinion, is why I am so passionate about protecting the structure of the tribe, because it provides for those in need, and that we be in this place then of empowering our individual selves. And what I am personally feeling for myself is that I am often in a lack place. And so really, that's where the video is even coming from, of Pluto and Aquarius, and like, what is Pluto and Aquarius transforming for us? And I think Chiron moving through Aries is working on a lot of the same things, as far as unlocking the hero inside of each of us, unlocking the contribution that we are fully capable of making, if not for our own self-doubt. You know, and like, it's that self-doubt that has us back at that scenario where Chiron opposite the South Node in Libra, where, we don't trust ourselves. We have doubt in ourselves, so we trust somebody else, and that leads us to consequences of somebody else's making, but that we have to live through because it's our life, and ultimately we're responsible for it, whether we take that responsibility or not. And this transit, this 2-week period, February 11th through the 25th, it feels like finding a key that is unlocking the contribution that you're able to make, the authenticity of who you are, the unique essence of who you are, what is already within you. You have so much to give already, and yet we sit there doubting ourselves like it's not enough, it's not perfect enough, yada, yada, yada. Even this video, like I felt like North Node conjunct Chiron, like what could I say that I haven't already said? And how is that even going to help people? And like having all of these questions, needing all of these guarantees that this will actually make a difference instead of just contributing it. Type a 1 down below in the comments if you've got something from this video already. Like, please, I would really love that as far as like medicine for shutting up this voice next time, as far as like needing a guarantee that it's going to help somebody before you make the contribution. It's like they can't even tell you if it's going to help them if they don't know what you can contribute, and so then it ends up being this cycle of like, well, nobody's ever said that what I have would help them, but I also haven't ever shown anybody what I have that I could offer that might help them, and so this North Node being this growth and like stepping outside of our comfort zone, coming together with Chiron, the wounded healer, I see a lot of people kind of tipping into maybe not like completely eradicating their self-doubt, but definitely opening up a whole lot more to the possibility that what you have to offer could absolutely help someone. And like, how many people need to be helped before you believe that what you have is valuable? And I'm asking myself this question because, you have proof of concept as soon as you help one person. And I've helped a lot more than one person, and I still go through these phases of self-doubt. So all of that to say that, sometimes what we have to offer and our authenticity, like, the whole holding it back because it's not perfect enough. Like, what if the whole point of what you're supposed to offer is your imperfection, is your incompleteness? Because in your wholeness of what you are, right? Like, not focusing on the lack of what you're not, just looking at what you are. When you show up with that, and then somebody else has like the little matching puzzle piece, and you're able to like hook together and each offer the contribution that you have, the side of the wisdom that you have. And in both of you coming together and making that contribution, you each have more than you had before. You each have access to more wisdom and more resources than you had before. So getting to participate in that kind of an exchange is so rewarding. Getting to be supported by the love of the community, knowing that you're making your contribution and you're receiving the contribution that other people are making. They're receiving yours, you're receiving theirs, and there's no guilt in I shouldn't be receiving this because you're giving everything that's extra and then you're keeping everything that you need, right? Like the needs of the individuals being met. That is ultimately what we're reaching for when we're talking about being empowered. We're wanting you to have your power is wanting you to have the autonomy, the authority to meet your own needs and have them stay at a sustainable level of being met. Because when you exist in that place and then the energy starts to overflow, generosity is natural in the human spirit. I believe this to the core of my being. And so that's maybe a good spot to leave this, as far as like, we've had some really fun conversations. Like, again, leave just a 1 or a heart down below in the comments if you got anything out of this video. You do not have to find your words. Let me tell you, let me just reiterate the medicine for Chiron and Gemini being that, like, it doesn't even matter what you say. It's all energy anyway. So leave some energy down in the comments if you got anything from this video. Take a second to give it a like. All of that is telling other people that, like, hey, there's energy here that you could be tapping into. You could be plugging into this. So, like, even just that little bit of promoting this work, making that contribution of using your voice to vote that, like, hey, this is a good video, you should watch this, algorithm. Dude, like, thank you. Thank you for making that contribution. There are a solid chunk of you guys around the channel that are watching and liking and commenting and sharing and doing all the things that I feel that contribution. I feel the way that, you know, the more energy you guys pour into it, the bigger the community gets. Like, there's such a reciprocity between I make my contribution and trust what the community is going to contribute in return. And I feel this turning point for myself and for a lot of us that are around this space of this North Node Chiron time being this overflowing of, you know, not only you seeing the value of what it is that you have to offer, but the world is our mirror. The community, quote unquote, is our mirror of, like, the more we can see the value, the more other people can see the value of us showing up and making whatever unique contribution it is that we have within us to make. It does not have to be perfect. And in fact, I would argue it's even more valuable the less perfect it is. The less perfect it is, the more permission it has for other people to follow their own authenticity, to find their own way, their own imperfect, unique, and complete in its own right contribution to make. You know, we each have a medicine that has helped us to feel better, and imagine even just one other person feeling better because you're able to put that out into the world in a way where other people can feel it from you. I thank you for any of that you are doing in this space, in other spaces, in your family, in your friend group, in your business, like wherever you are. Thank you so much for contributing your energy to the collective. And I have no doubt that this is a season of more of that. So until next time, dear friend, you take such good care of the definitely valuable soul that you are, the inherently valuable, unique, divine frequency that you are, and so will I.